Alright, we finished the game, we looked at the bonus content, we did the nil number route, we looked at the dances and the songs and all that. But by the end here, I feel like for closure, we still need to look at the timeline at least once briefly from top to bottom, just so we can organize everything in our head clearly. So before I wrap up for real, I wanna share this summary that I've made with you, and I try to keep it as brief and succinct as I can, with the assumption that you've basically seen the whole game already, but you just need a little bit of organization of how all the events really played out. And so let's begin. As we all know, the story of Nirvana Initiative is split into two sections. 5 days from February from 60 years ago, and also present day. 6 years ago, on February 9, Uru kills Jin and splits his body into two. The next day, the power goes out in the middle of a live stream at Studio Devita, and Jin Furue's right half is discovered. On February 11, Ryuki begins investigations and learns that Aiba is on a secret mission away from Date. This was because Aiba was partnered to Mizuki Kuranushi for the HB case. Ryuki goes around town and meets Komeji, who he notes is slightly drunk. This lines up with our later knowledge that whoever took the left half of Jin's body at Misetan was also drunk. Ryuki also meets Amame at Sekiba High. She specifically mentions being too busy today to help Gen at Brahmin, because she's going to meet her father Komeji later tonight to discover he stole Jin's corpse. And by the end of the night, Amame and Gen hide the body in Brahmin's freezer. To learn more about the Bats 490 video, Ryuki visits Shoma, who leads him to Chikara at Horadori Institute. Ryuki sings with him to learn that Bats 490 is related to Nikes, and so he also meets Tokiko for the first time today as well. Later, Ryuki also solves the mystery behind Jin Furue's right half at Studio Devita via VR investigation, and we end off the night with him discovering the right half of Chikara's body at Sekiba High. On the morning of February 12, Mizuki Kuranushi, or Bibi, discovers the left half of Chikara's body at Yogyagi Park. She finds that the Terror has issued a balloon challenge to her and the rest of the police force. At the Kumakura office, Bibi borrows Moma's voice changer, which presumably is what she uses to adopt the masked woman persona from this point forward. She goes around town looking for the 3 balloons and learns from boss at Misetan that Ryuki is so mentally unwell, he shot at a civilian. And finally later, after syncing with Gen, Bibi pieces together the location of the hidden room at Horadori. It's underground. As Quartz, she asks Lion to help her with unlocking the door. Lion mentions he knows the shift times of the patrol guards, likely because he was only fired as a janitor a few days ago. We end off the night with Bibi and Lion solving the statue music puzzle and going underground. There's a scene change right as they open the door, and we don't get to see what happens next. The next day, on February 13, Ryuki is reprimanded by boss for committing a serious error. While playing, we're led to believe that this is because Ryuki let the Terror get away, but this is actually for shooting at a civilian the day before. Boss avoided Ryuki getting fired, but he must solve the case within 3 days to avoid a demotion. At Aioen, Lion sees 12-year-old Mizuki and feels like it's deja vu, probably because he just saw Quartz the day before. He brings up having gone to the Horadori hidden room last night, but they didn't find anything there. Later, Ryuki decides to go to Horadori for himself and finds Komeji. He syncs with him to learn that Komeji stole something important from the Terror. And at this point, Komeji receives a message from the Terror telling him to go to Studio Devita. They both go together, but Ryuki ends up passing out from the Nirvana trial video. When he wakes up, Komeji is already dead, and his right half is found in a body bag. Shoma runs away from the scene in shock. Worried for his safety, Ryuki chases after Shoma to the Misetan Ferris wheels, where he sees him getting into the number 2 car. We see Ryuki waiting for the Ferris wheel to come back down, and the scene ends as it strikes midnight. Next day, on Valentine's Day, Bibi finds Komeji's left half, and using VR simulation and the information from Ryuki's sync, she figures out that the important thing Komeji took from the Terror was the left half of an unknown body, which we know to be Jin's body. Ryuki tells Bibi that he's going to meet somebody important to the HB case at 4 PM today, but refuses to elaborate, because the person that he's going to be meeting is the Terror himself. Bibi also ends up visiting Shoma at the hospital, who was brought there by Ryuki at around 1 AM the same day, after Shoma got off the Ferris wheel. At around nighttime, Bibi gets a call from Lion about Kizuna going missing. Bibi chases the trail all the way to the abandoned factory, where she not only finds the Terror but also Ryuki, who is currently being blackmailed by the Terror to do his bidding. The terror warns Bibi to not say anything about anything she saw tonight, including Ryuki shooting at her to anybody, or else he'll have Mizuki Date killed. Bibi's heart starts acting up again, and the night ends with Date taking her to the hospital. On February 15, Ryuki is still under terror's threat and can't say anything to Boss and Tama. We never found Kizuna yesterday, so Ryuki continues to look for her. He meets Date and Mizuki at Ikume Shrine. Aiba has returned to Date because Bibi is wounded and healing. Ryuki also finds a masked woman resting at the Sagan residence. She was found by Hitomi at the park because Bibi forcibly left the hospital. Eventually, Ryuki gets a call from Date to go to Sejima residence as a man with an iron mask was spotted there. Ryuki puts together from syncing with Iris that Kizuna is likely being held at the cathedral, and so he goes there, and the events that lead to the explosion take place. Terror tells Ryuki to shoot Date, but Ryuki can't do it despite Tama's life being on the line, and so Terror blows the whole place up. As the place comes crumbling, Date asks Ryuki why he automatically knew that the man with the iron mask is the Terror, and if he was the one who ran away from the abandoned factory yesterday. Ryuki has nothing to say in return, but we know that it's because he met the Terror at this very same cathedral the day before. And so the explosion scene ends with Date losing all of his memories, Aiba losing all of her investigation data from 6 years ago, Mizuki losing her left eye, Kizuna becoming wheelchair-bound, and Ryuki agonizing over his betrayal of everybody for the next 6 years. Back in present day, sometime in the early hours of February 10, Amame kills Uru as revenge for killing her father 6 years ago. This happened in the underground basement of Horadori and was witnessed by Tokiko, who ends up blackmailing Amame, saying she must do two things: move the left half of Uru's body to the stadium, and also Tokiko's right half to her own office after she kills herself 2 days later. And so later in the day, 18-year-old Mizuki Date finds Uru's left half at the stadium. Around this time, Date also regains his memories as this event is reported in the news. The next day, on February 11, Mizuki uses VR to learn that Shoma's robot is probably the one responsible for bringing Uru's left half to the stadium. To find Shoma to ask him for more, Mizuki ends up at Horadori, where she runs into the masked woman as well as Kizuna. By the end of the night after syncing with Kizuna, Mizuki learns her origins as a genetically engineered child. On February 12, we're back with Ryuki, who decides to VR investigate Chikara. This doesn't make any sense though, because Chikara died 6 years ago. Tama shows worry for Ryuki's mental state, but she can't disobey, so they just go through with it. Ryuki doesn't come up with too much though, so he visits Tokiko, who of course is still alive in the present day, and syncs with her. The Somnium is suspicious, but he finds nothing concrete. Tokiko ends up telling him to come back at 10 PM the same night, and she'll tell him more then. And so Ryuki kills time by spending it at the park, but he has another glitch episode from watching the video and ends up being late. He hurries back to Nike's after 10 to find that Tokiko's dead. This is because Tokiko asked Amame to bring her right half to the office after she kills herself, so everything is within expectations, there's no foul play here. Ryuki ends up VR investigating the place, and it leads him down to the East Cathedral, where he's injected with TC Purge after opening the little box. He sees somebody else down at the cathedral, probably Amame, but he can't recognize her as she just shows up as a blue figure in his vision right after being infected with the TC Purge. The blue figure gets away, and that's how the night ends off. Back over with Mizuki right at midnight of February 13. She and Line are at Horadori's hidden room. Unlike 6 years ago, this time they discover the slicing machines, Tokiko's left half, and the Terror's bunker. Later in the day, Lion and Date, disguised as Gen, find Jin's left half in Brahmin's freezer, which was placed there 6 years ago by Amame and Gen. This ends up being the basis for Lion saying that this might have been the worst day of his life, if not for Kizuna. At Ikume's shrine, Mizuki learns Nyx's plans on dispersing the TC Purge virus. She and Bibi rush over to Misetan to try to stop the practice run, but they couldn't do it. They also see Ryuki staring absent-mindedly at the Ferris wheel here, but Bibi knocks him out cold, keeping her grudge from 6 years ago when he shot at her at the abandoned factory. The clock strikes 12, it's Valentine's Day yet again. Ryuki comes to and is upset that Shoma's not at the Ferris wheel, even though that happened 6 years ago. Tama's really worried, but there's nothing she can do. Later on, Ryuki decides to VR investigate Homeji's right half, which again also happened 6 years ago. to learn that Amame likely met the terror, and so brings her back to sync. And for better or worse, nobody was at HQ, so Boss and Pewter weren't there to yell at Ryuki being like, hey man, why the hell are you syncing with a witness from 6 years ago? Either way, nothing really concrete from the Somnium. While Ryuki is still pondering the results of the sync, he gets an emergency call from Aiba that Kizuna is missing yet again in present day. So chronologically, this is the point where we end off before Mama reveals to us that, hey, actually, something's been wrong with the timeline the whole time. On February 15, Bibi reveals to Mizuki that Kizuna is okay, she's safe, and she was just planning on eloping with Lion is all. Bibi, Date, and Mizuki go to the cathedral and meet up with Ryuki. They share all their information together and figure they need to stop the Nirvana Initiative, which is still active despite the terror being dead. This time, Mizuki syncs with Amame and we learn the full truth. That Amame killed Uru, the terror, and Tokiko killed herself. They figure out that the initiative will take place at the stadium at noon that day, and you know the rest of it. Hopefully, going through the timeline like this makes everything make a bit more sense, and just going through it, I think I can really appreciate how much effort was put into it, because there's really a lot of little details, but at the same time, I do feel like making all these details clear is something that maybe the game should be doing itself and not just Mama going, hey, look, this is actually the trick here, and then they just don't explain anything. So, yeah. I feel like a lot of the discussion on this game is probably gonna revolve around the plot twist because it is quite a big element here and I can sort of see both sides. Like I said, they put a whole bunch of effort into making sure the story works and all that, but I can also see exactly why people would hate it. For me, ever since we saw the reveal, my first reaction was, okay, that's great, cool. So what? So what? And the game didn't give me any sort of answer until the nil number ending, which is like a 30-minute bonus segment in a 50-hour game, so I don't really think that's really considered too much. Okay, I don't even care about how, oh, Bibi and Mizuki just happen to have the same uniform, same pipe, same bike, and then a whole bunch of people knew them, but nobody ever mentioned one person to the other. Like, I don't even care about that stuff, okay? I just care about what does this twist mean for the people in the story? What does it mean for Ryuki? What does it mean for Mizuki? What does it mean for Bibi? And the answer is painful for me to say out loud because it literally is nothing. Before I keep talking about this, I do want to reiterate that I really enjoy this game. I love this series. There's something so special about it. It's so weird and cringy, but I love it so much. But at the same time, I think we can also acknowledge the shortcomings of the storytelling. If you remember the novel I mentioned at the end of the abandoned factory scene, the reason why the twist is so great is not just because they pulled it off, but also because it forces you to change your view of a character 180 degrees. The one who you thought was the most innocent was actually the worst person in the whole book. But in Aini, it feels like they just have this twist, but they don't do anything with it. It creates this disconnect between the player and the characters because you're the only person getting bamboozled, but to them, everything is just normal. How on earth were they preserving the bodies and why were we finding halves 6 years apart? Oh, you weren't. It's just that, you know, we were trying to trick you into thinking that was the case. And then I'm just sort of left thinking, oh, okay. In the end, I think one really succinct way to put it is that the plot twist doesn't exist to enhance the story, but the other way around. All the characters, the entire narrative, exists to make sure the plot twist goes the way it does. Which in this process, because we're trying so hard to make sure the plot twist works, things get lost. And I think it's a big shame because I1 has shown that it can really care about its characters and create some really touching storylines out of it. Date and Mizuki. Do you remember back in that one Somnium, Date Somnium, where Mizuki had to choose between going to Renju and Shoko or Date? Oh my god, just pulling at the heartstrings. But because Aini is so focused on this plot twist, the characters are not given room to breathe and just exist for the sake of existing, as opposed to existing to say some line or do something that'll make the plot twist work. Personally, I feel like I would be completely okay with playing a 100% linear, no player choice story if it meant that, you know, the characters had really great development and the story was engaging and all that. over a story that jumps around in roots and has a whole bunch of plot twists. But I feel like if I say this, it's also kind of like asking for an orange to be an apple. Like, that's just not the kind of games that Uchikoshi has been making. The whole no spoilers from the first Ai thing was kind of weird too, because it means that we can't alter the characters. The characters can't go through anything, because they gotta make sure that they stay static enough so that it makes sense if you play this game first or if you play that game first, and I don't really like that decision personally. I understand why they did it, because marketing and they want to make sure that more people can get into the series and all that, but it's a bit of a shame to say the least. I've seen enough of the recurring characters from I1 that I have a set image of them in my mind already, but it would have been really nice to see them go through a little bit more change as a result of the things in this story. Mizuki struggling with now knowing that she's a clone and that she has a newfound sister, or Ryuki and his mental issues stemming from his twin brother dying ages ago. I think I would have really enjoyed seeing more of these things. So yeah, that's my main thoughts on the whole plot twist topic. Other than that, oh my god, the moment they freaking started doing that dance number at the end, I was done. Like I said, I really like this, okay? I'm just highlighting the stuff that I feel like warrants a little bit more discussion. But overall, I super duper enjoyed this. So many moments where I laughed out loud, so many moments where this game enables me to be the most juvenile version of myself that I can be. Ryuki and Tama, gotta love them. Aiba and Mizuki, or Aiba and Bibi, top notch. Mizuki's voice actress, Tomoyo Kurosawa, I want to highlight particularly because I feel like her voice acting accounted for like 20% of why I enjoyed this game alone. Seriously, like 12-year-old Mizuki, Bibi, Mizuki, or 18-year-old Mizuki, these were 3 distinct characters, and it was really enjoyable just to hear her talk. Whenever Mizuki is being a little shit or she and Aiba are roasting each other, it's just like, ugh, this just hits the spot, you know? So that's great. Really love all the jokes, love the dance. And despite everything, I really love this game, I really love this series. I never thought we'd get a sequel to I1, cause with Uchikoshi's games you always get the discussion about how, oh, they don't sell well in Japan, but they sell okay in the West. But now that we have I2, I need I3, so you better go freaking fill out that survey they put out where they asked, hey, do you guys want I3? I'll put it in the comment section somewhere probably. And if you enjoyed this Let's Play, if you enjoyed this series, please do consider supporting the creators by buying the game if you haven't already. If it's too pricey, wait until there's a sale, or just tell your friends about the game. You know, word-of-mouth marketing and all that. And then hopefully, with any luck, I'll see you back here for I3 in a few years. Yeah, I really look forward to it. So with that said, this was Welonz with a Let's Play of I, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed playing it, and I will see you all in another place, in another time. Bye!